All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to be talking to an individual who is a season 32 competitor on The Ultimate Fighter, a former Cage Warriors title challenger, and a current UFC competitor. Very excited to be talking to Nathan Fletcher on Bowks Talking Bouts today. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me on. Nice to speak to you, and nice to hear all my accolades there laid out as well. I haven't really heard them put out like that, so that's pretty nice to hear.
Yeah, well, you've done some great things in this story so far, man, and it seems like many great chapters to unfurl. Like I saw you posted a clip, I guess, like a week ago, doing some pad work in Vegas before your last fight and stuff like that, and talking about how much you want to, I guess, really show in like that next fight. Was that post kind of intimating that maybe something's in the works here? Like, is Nathan Fletcher lining up for his next UFC fight by chance? Like, how's that all shaken out? Like, I guess you can only divulge so much, maybe, but kind of thought to
Yeah,
ask.
there's nothing like directly in the works just yet. To be honest, I do think that my next fight's going to be in the first quarter of next year, just because the way this year's played out, the unfortunate results I've had, and we're getting pretty close to the end of the calendar year now for fights. So I feel like a lot of the cards are already near enough fully booked. But it suits me, to be honest. I feel like sort of assessing where I'm at, how far I've come, but also how much I've got left to sort of improve to get to where I want to get to. I think this little bit of time now in between before I start my next camp, that's going to be vital in evolving as a fighter, and just from all aspects, skill and mindset wise, getting me ready to go and make sure that next time I do go out there, I am fully the best version of myself.
And I guess like what pieces are you kind of looking at in this period right now, and I guess to come before that 2026 subsequent outing that you're looking at? Like, what are you looking to, I guess, like shore up or focus on during this time period?
So I'd probably split it up into two categories, more like the mentality side of things and then skill set. So I think that first of all, touching on skill set, I think it's important that in between fights. So essentially, when you're in a fight camp, a lot of it comes down to getting in shape, getting fit, getting the weight down, and sort of tailoring your game plan with the skills you already have for your specific opponent. Now, outside of fight camps, I feel like that is a really good time to skill develop and add new tools to your arsenal that maybe those hours of repetition and practice, you can't really put that into a fight camp because you're focusing on your sparring rounds, your strength and conditioning, getting a game plan in order. Whereas now I've got the freedom to kind of go away and put thousands of hours into developing new skills to add to my game. So from a skill set standpoint, I'm looking to do that. And then in terms of mindset, I feel like this sport is really like a momentum based sport. I think when you're winning and you've got the wind in your sails, it's very easy to keep that positive mindset and just thrive in that circumstance. Whereas at the minute, I've dealt with two crappy results this year. Essentially, a split decision loss that I thought I deserved to get the win, and then my last fight, I didn't even get to get going. It kind of was over before the fight started. So I need to really dig deep within now and realize the opportunity that I've got and what I want to get from this sport when it's all said and done. And I feel like this little low period I've had, that's a perfect point in my career to springboard now and go on and have all the success that I know I can have. But these vital months are where I dictate that. I can sit here, feel sorry for myself and sulk that it's not going the way I wanted it to, or I can be positive, flip it on its head and really take motivation from the way my UFC career started and then turn it around, which is what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah, I mean, fighting seems like such an intense microcosm of life. Like, in as far as like when you're kind of on that streak and have that momentum, it's like the confidence is really elevated and kind of, you know, brought to that next level, as it were. But then, kind of, if you're on a certain skid or whatever, or having results that aren't necessarily favorable, it can definitely have that commensurate effect in the inverse. So, it's definitely a very high pressure kind of thing for sure. So good that you're also kind of focusing on like the mental part of the game as well as the certain refinements and technique you're looking to make as well. It sounds like you're mapping it out the way you should almost.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would put my skill set against anybody in the world. I believe that I'm in the UFC for a reason. I believe that, in my career, I've finished near enough everybody that I've beaten. So I've got the ability to be here. It's just reminding myself and fully believing in myself that I can go on to be a world champion. And I think that sometimes, so for example, I feel like I saw myself as a UFC fighter before I even got to the UFC. And then I kind of maintained the same mindset when I was in the UFC, but now it needs to change. Now I need to see myself as a world champion in order to then that become a reality, if that makes sense. So I feel like for me now going forward, developing the skills is important, but I already believe in my skill set. It's just, I think, taking that mentality to the next level in order to compete at the elite level. That's really what I'm focusing on now for the next few months before I step back in the cage.
And I feel like being out of a space like Next Gen Liverpool is so instrumental in that. I would think like just such a deep roster of really high level names. So I would think that you're in the perfect place to refine in the way that you're looking to.
Yeah, 100%. And even though I might not necessarily gain confidence from the results I've had this year, what I can gain confidence from is training with my training partners. So we have now 4 guys in the UFC. We have guys on Cage Warriors at the elite level there. We have guys signed to PFL in Liam Gittins. So my training partners are some of the best fighters in the world. So I know day in, day out, I'm working with those guys. Iron sharpens iron. I'm testing myself against them all the time in the gym. So I can derive a lot of confidence from that. And the team's just getting bigger and bigger, better and better. Like each year, it's crazy to see where we've come because I thought we were kind of, on a high a couple of years ago. And then seeing where that's come to. Sorry, someone just popped up on my screen then saying about hand gestures use effects. I don't know what that was, but anyway, it threw me off. But yeah, we're really sort of building that momentum as a team now, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. The mat's getting busier and busier. We've got such a high level now. It's a great environment to be in.
It really seems like the case. And I guess I'd be curious to even somewhat backtrack on something that you were saying before to kind of, touch on, because you mentioned the split decision loss and I guess the frustration that you felt with, I guess, feeling like you should have gotten the nod in that March outing there. And I've seen a Reddit thread that very much reflects that sentiment you have, like a lot of people thinking that maybe the split decision kind of went the wrong way there. Like, is that anything you take any like modicum of solace in? Like, do you feel like a certain like vindication almost, the fact that other people have seen it very similarly beyond just your, I guess, localized perception as the fighter? Or is it kind of just something that still stings because it's a loss on the ledger, I guess?
I think ultimately, well, there's 2 ways you can look at it. It's nice when other people see it the same way I see it. So I know I'm not delusional. I understand that like that was a pretty widespread view that I deserve to get my hand raised. However, being pretty self-critical and being like harsh on myself, I'm aware that that fight was a close fight. And I know that that can happen if you leave it in the hands of the judges, especially in closely contested contests. Now, it's not necessarily my job to do the judge's job for them and make sure they make the right decision. But I feel it is my job to separate myself from my opponents. And I think that in that fight, I've got to take ownership that I let that be a close fight. I think skill-wise, I'm much better than my opponent. And on that night, I let him into the fight way more than I should have done. So I can sit here and feel as though I was hard done by and I should have got the result. Yeah, that is true. But at the same time, that fight shouldn't have been anywhere near as close as what it was. And I showed glimpses of it in the second round where I dominated pretty much the whole of the round. I know I'm able to do that to him for 15 minutes or even get him out of there. So that's really the mindset I'm going to be going with forward in my career now is getting on people early and showing my style and not respecting my opponents, but not letting them into the fight more than they should. I know I'm capable of completely dominating someone like him. And I didn't do that on the night. So even if I thought I deserved to win, there's more that I could have shown. And that is ultimately on my shoulders.
Yeah, it seems like you're taking a wholesale account of everything and still a lot of momentum to be found going forward, and you're navigating a great path. And it seems like you're also navigating a good path with this somewhat relatively recent partnership with Reprimo and everything like that. Can you kind of delve into that a little bit? It seems like specialized, sportswear specifically engineered to cater to fighters and stuff like that. I guess just like how has that partnership been and just being an ambassador of Reprimo there?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Honestly, I couldn't ask for a better company to work with and to represent than Reprimo. They're sort of, I would say they're well established now, but they're a relatively new brand, especially sort of in the Liverpool market. They've kind of burst onto the scene for fashion, and now obviously they're going into the performance range as well with all the MMA specific gear that they're bringing out. I feel like it's a sort of simultaneous rise where I'm on this trajectory trying to make a name for myself on the world stage with MMA. That's exactly what Reprimo are doing now in the fashion game. So to be backed by a company like them and to be representing them, I feel it kind of raises my profile as well as an athlete. It's a legitimate brand. It's nice gear that I would wear regardless of the sponsorship. Do you know what I mean? So to be sort of picked out by them as an athlete they want representing them. I'm really proud that I'm able to do that. And like I said, yeah, it's a great brand to be associated with. In terms of the training gear, obviously, for me, I want to turn up to the gym every day. You look good, you feel good, you train good. So I've always liked having a nice set of training gear to go in. And a lot of times that meant I was wearing the clothes for like outside sort of day-to-day streetwear stuff. I was wearing that in the gym, and it is durable, don't get me wrong. You can get a few sessions out of it, but that's my nice gear. I don't want to be getting that all sweaty. So now they've brought out the performance range. That's perfect for me because I can rep them in my day-to-day sessions and I'm still looking good in the gym whilst I'm doing it. Because sometimes, not to like shit on other MMA brands, but some of the stuff that's designed for our training, it just doesn't look that nice. Like, it's the right gear, it's stretchy, it's breathable and stuff, but it's not got that sort of fashionable element to it. Whereas Reprimo, I like the logo, I like the brand, so I can look good in the gym, and it's for its proper use. So I'm wearing the correct gear as well when I'm training.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. There's like a certain synergy to the whole thing as well. And it seems like other fighters are seeing that as well with, Shem Rock and Luke Riley also being Reprimo ambassadors. So yeah, it seems like there's a certain synergy component there that other people are also seeing.
Definitely. I feel like not only are we good representations for them because of what we're doing, our work ethic, our sort of trajectory, but they're a good representation of me. Like, the fact that a company like that has chosen me as an ambassador, that sort of shows. I'm grateful to be associated with them because I see this company in high regard, and I feel like being associated with a company like that makes me seem more professional and more of a respectable athlete to be sort of backed by such a high profile company.
Yeah, no, for sure. Great to hear that there's such mutually beneficial dynamics to that partnership from what I'm hearing. But I did mention before that you were part of the Ultimate Fighter and everything like that, Team Shevchenko opposite Team Grasso. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't get your thoughts on that Shevchenko versus Weili Zhang fight at UFC 322.
Yeah, so yeah, the Ultimate Fighter, that's taking me back. So Valentina, she's a very intense character. I remember coaching on the show. She'd be so strict with us. She wouldn't let us drink water during the training sessions. She was very, I suppose you could say old school, but you've got to respect her mindset. She was very disciplined. She was very singularly focused. Um, so they've got a lot of respect for Valentina. Now, in terms of women's MMA, Zhang Weili is probably my favorite female fighter to watch. So I'm a little bit conflicted going into this one because obviously I've got the past relationship with Valentina from the show. But in terms of a fan, I love Zhang Weili's style. So I think it's going to be an interesting fight. Obviously, both elite in all aspects of the game. I would probably favour Valentina in the grappling exchanges because she's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and she's won fights via that method before, whereas Zhang's a little bit more of an explosive striker. Um, I think it makes for an entertaining matchup. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a betting man, to be honest, so I don't know who I'd put my money on, but I think it's gonna be a great matchup, and I think it's sort of the pinnacle of women's MMA at the moment. Those two names, so it's great for the sport and for the women's division that those two are stepping up and fighting each other.
Yeah, no, so incredible. Love seeing that. I think that was a fight that fans really, wanted to see for, a pronounced period of time. So good that we're finally getting that. And I guess like to the prior point that I was making about the elite people you get and work with at Next Gen, it seems like even the cross training kind of efforts get you in a very similar spot too. And as far as working with high level fighters, like this wasn't recent per se. I guess it was a bit over a year ago, but I saw you were working with Diego Lopez. Like, what was that experience like? I mean, one of the top featherweights in the world, a former UFC title contender. I would think that would be, a great experience. And yeah, somewhat recently beating John Silva and ending the big momentum that he had, at least in a temporary kind of sense. But yeah, just thoughts on that Diego Lopez situation I referenced.
Yeah, Diego Lopez is a beast, and he's such a cool guy as well. For somebody who's doing so well in the sport and got a lot of momentum at the minute, he's such a humble guy. Do you know what I mean? Diego was actually one of the coaches on the other team. He was with Team Grasso on the show, and I was a little bit gutted that I didn't end up with them because Diego's, again, one of my favourite fighters to watch. So from a fan point of view, I was a little bit upset that I didn't get picked for Team Grasso, but it all worked out well because I ended up still building a decent relationship with a lot of the guys on their team as well. So when I went out to Vegas last year to make my UFC debut, I ended up staying for a few weeks in Vegas and bumped into Diego again, and he just invited us down to the gym. He was very hospitable. He had me and my teammate Adam Cullen there. Yeah, just a super humble, welcoming guy, very skilled. Obviously, near enough positioned himself back in line for another title shot. I know there's a few other guys at featherweight, but I think that beating Jean Silva the way he did has definitely put his name in the mix with the likes of Lerone Murphy and Evlaev as well, the other guys up there. But yeah, I've not got enough good things to say about Diego. He's a proper gentleman and a great fighter as well.
Yeah, and I guess kind of in that same vein of like people who seem like they might potentially be in line for a title shot, just kind of going off of recent rumblings more so. And I guess you have a certain connectivity to this individual. Like you fought on one of Paddy Pimblett's undercards earlier in your career, and it seemed like that was a formative moment for you in terms of like I really, want to make a run at this kind of career path. Like, what do you make of, I guess, some of the recent rumblings whereby Paddy Pimblett may be fighting Ilia Topuria in first quarter of next year for that UFC title?
I think it's very exciting. I think that that's the fight to make, to be honest. I know there's Justin Gaethje's up there as well. Max Holloway's name's been thrown around, but whoever Paddy gets next, it's a very exciting matchup. He's fighting the elite of the elite, regardless of if it's for the title against Ilya or if it's against a legend like Justin Gaethje or a legend like Max Holloway. His next fight is going to be massive. Now, I want to see him fight Ilya. I think that there's not many people with a skill set that can beat Ilya. Now, I might be a little bit biased being a teammate of Paddy's, but I believe he's got the recipe to defeat that man. And I think that it's such a big fight. It completely sells itself. The back and forth nature of the press conferences, like they really don't like each other. So it's such an easy sell. And I think why potentially risk that opportunity by letting them fight somebody else first before you do that one? I think that that's the fight the fans want to see. I think get it done in January, early next year. I think that's the fight everybody wants to see. And I think Paddy gets it done as well.
I guess what path to victory would you see with, Pimblett going against Topuria? Like what would be, I guess presuming you see like a certain particular, way that the fight would end or some, I guess path to victory as far as like a methodology, like how would you see Pimblett getting it done over Topuria if that fight was booked?
So I think obviously there's a few things that are no secret. One is that Paddy's a lot bigger than him. We saw that when they faced off with each other. Now, Paddy is somebody who can use his range very well. He's got a very good kicking game. He's really tricky with his lead leg, and he can disguise head kicks pretty well by going to the body, going to the legs. And I think that the sort of only sort of weakness we've seen from Topuria is where he moves his head in that fight, especially against Jai Herbert. He slipped right onto a head kick. And I think that's one of Paddy's biggest weapons. And not only that, obviously, we've got to avoid the hands. Ilya's great boxing, walks people down, gets them into punching range, and gets them to trade with him. He can do that. If anybody stands in the pocket with him, he can knock anybody out in the world. But Paddy's not going to stand in front of him. Paddy's going to move his feet, kick. And if they do get into that close range, Paddy is elite on the ground. And I feel like his takedowns are tricky. His wrestling isn't conventional, what you're used to seeing. So in order to prepare a defense for Paddy's style of wrestling, it's very difficult because he doesn't shoot generic double legs or single legs like other people. He's quite awkward in his approach to the grappling. But when he does get you down, he's so heavy on top. I know from training with him, and I see him with all the elite level grapplers in our gym, he's got such a good top control. And the way he's able to float on top of people and land damage, he can control you with his hips. So he's got his hands free to land heavy ground and pound, like you saw against Chandler. So if I was to paint out a way I see that fight going, I see Paddy keeping the range, using his kicks, using his teeps, using his head kicks. And when Ilya gets frustrated and tries to close that distance without setting it up, I think they fall into a clinch and Paddy takes him down. Once Paddy gets on top of him, I think he does some real damage. And you see a similar situation to what he did to Michael Chandler, cutting him up with 12-6 elbows. Paddy's really taken to the 12-6 rule better than any fighter, I think. And I can tell you that from watching him in the gym. He does it with his elbow pads on. He's catching people. He's hitting them from all different angles. So, yeah. Look, I think it makes a very interesting matchup. And I think that I personally want to see it, but I know a lot of the fans as well want to see that one. So I think Dana, get it done. Get it done, buddy.
Yeah, no doubt. Super exciting time in that regard. And I guess kind of tying this into the discussion that you had as part of Paddy Pimblett's podcast when you were a guest on that show. It's been quite a long road since the days of training freestyle wrestling with Coach Carl for you, eh?
Yeah, that's an old reference. Yeah, that's where I started out my training at the dog pit in Southport. So I've said this before on other interviews, but I'm from a town called Southport, which is about 45 minutes outside Liverpool. And there's not a lot of MMA gyms there. So when I started, I went to a gym called the Dog Pit in Southport. And one of the coaches there was a guy called Carl McGrath. And he was a freestyle wrestling coach. And that was his expertise. So I ended up doing loads of freestyle wrestling sessions with him. And that's kind of what got me into the sport. I always knew I wanted to do MMA, but it just so happened that I found Carl, who was a great wrestling coach, and then I ran with the freestyle game for a little bit before finding Next Gen, and then MMA took over.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing, man. And I mean, that could even serve as a parting thought in and of itself, in a sense. But I figured I'd give you the floor if you did have any final parting thought you wanted to add as we're kind of wrapping up here today. I really appreciate the time and insights, Nathan.
No, yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. I think that for me now, obviously, like I've said this earlier on in the interview, but this is a very pivotal point in my career. I've kind of climbed the first mountain and become a UFC fighter, which 99% of guys who start out as a pro, they don't get to achieve that. That's sort of the main goal people set. But now getting here is one thing, staying here and making a name for yourself and making a legacy, getting some money in the bank, getting some titles behind me. These are the next goals. So I'm very aware of the next mountain I've got to climb. It's an even bigger one than what I've already achieved. But I'm 27 years old. I've still got that fire inside me, and I'm very motivated to make sure I continue on this journey and get out of it everything I know I deserve, because I've put a lifetime into this sport and I've got so much more to give still. So keep an eye out for me. Don't count me out just yet. I know me careers in the UFC started off a bit rocky, but so did my abs, and look where it is now. So that's it. That's the future I've got planned for myself.
Yeah, well, that's just what it is. Like the story of your life is kind of what you want to author, and you don't have to resign yourself to what you perceive your current situation to be. Like it seems like you're in really good spirits and refining a lot of aspects. And from what I can tell too, it seems like we're going to see you somewhere in the early part of next year. So, no, definitely exciting times, man, and really appreciate you coming on Bowks Talking Bouts and giving great insights today. All the best with everything going forward, man. Looking forward to seeing you in the cage next. But until then, you have a good rest of your day, man. All the best.
Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it. Cheers for having me on.